All right, we are officially recording. Very good. Okay, so we are working on the do now. So let's figure out what's our process. I'm told there's 3 options, so we're going to do 3 different possibilities. Either way, if I'm doing 50% offspring, I can fill in what? What do I put in my inside boxes that I know? CD, CW, CD. You could do CW, CD, either way. Okay, we know this, right? We have to have this. Now, what could our other answer be here? Okay, that's one option. Oh, CW, 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 right? Okay, so would this satisfy 50% of our offspring are checkered?
Yes.
Okay, so if this is true, what would our parents have to be? So if this is CB, this has to be CW. Okay, if this is CB, this has to be CW. CW. Okay, so one option of parents is we have CW, CW, and CB, CW. That would satisfy our option here. Okay, next one, what are we gonna do? We fill in what we know. What's another option over here? CB, CB. Sorry, I know I'm walking, but I'm trying not to. Okay. By the way, if you did horizontal instead of vertical, totally fine. But you should be able to get the same answer. Okay. All right. So if this is true, we have CB. This has to be CW. CB. Oh. This can be CW. This is CB. Yes. Okay. CB. Then this one has to be CB. So in this case, we can do a black chicken and a checkered chicken. First one, we had a white and a checkered, and we have a black and a checkered. It would still satisfy our prompt. What's the third one?
CB.
Huh?
Okay.
So then what can we put here? A black and a white?
Yes.
Okay. So we still have our 50%. So let's say this one's CB. This one has to be CW. This one CB. Okay, what has to be here? CW. So we could have a checkered and a checkered. Yes? Still satisfies our prompt? No. You can flip-flop alleles. Doesn't matter. What? How would this be different? If you have, what, are you going to have a different kind of checker? No. That would be cute. Maybe you can buy us taking that again. But why would we spend all of our money doing it? Then you could charge like $1 million. All right. So, like I said, you will see a question like this on your test, and it is likely that you'll see it at the end of the year exam. So tomorrow I will have another backwards Punnett square do now for you. We'll keep practicing with it. Okay. Let's get to our notes. What? What about my child? They're all beautiful. Let's keep going with some practice problems, shall we? genetic disorder we talked about was PKU. Now, we talked about our disorders. We know what type of inheritance pattern these disorders have, but we have yet to do an actual Punnett square practice with it. Oh, by the way, congrats to our secretary and treasurer. And Amalia, our representative. And that's it for in here. Yeah, yay, Brianna and Madison. They're not in here though. Okay. 9th grade, 10th grade. Senior. Because I was writing, he was doing it and I was writing really fast. Treasurer? Secretary. We only have one secretary for the whole school. Yes. Ragsdale. Lucas Ragsdale? Is it Ragsdale? Okay. Here we go. Is this, let's check, is this in your packet actually, or no? Orlando, is this a practice question in your packet or no? Okay, so this is an extra practice. You should have a blank space. Okay. I will just remind you, if we can't get through the notes at the speed that I know we can, it will become homework. So I know we can go a little quicker than this. Okay, PKU. Remember that's the one where they prick the baby's foot and figure out if we have it. Not a terrible genetic disorder because you can live a pretty normal life with the right diet. So it says, a person cannot use the amino acid phenylalanine caused by a recessive allele. That's important for us to know. Individuals with PKU must follow a strict diet. Suppose a man who is a carrier marries a woman with PKU. What are the chances they will have a child with PKU? This is a regular forwards Punnett square. It does not give us alleles, so we need to create our own. Is this sex-linked or autosomal from your notes? Autosomal. So this is not sex-linked. So, and it's a recessive allele. So what do we want our alleles to be? We're going to have a big or little for sure. Okay. We can do P to represent PKU or less PKU. I'm fine with that. Again, it doesn't really matter what letter you pick. No, as long as you have a big and a little. Okay. So we'll just say PKU, P, and little p. The other option that might make sense, you could have an N for normal and then a little n or something like that. But this is fine. Okay. So a man who is a carrier, what is his genotype going to be? All right, I've heard one person. Do we agree with that one person? Big P, little p. Okay, this is our man carrier. Because he has the allele, but he does not have the disease. Okay, so big P is normal, right? Little p is PKU. Who is he marrying? Two little p is wonderful. Little p, little p. Dylan, tell me your chances. I know you can do this part. This part's easy, right? Okay, good. So this is a great time to mention, if this were an IB test, don't give me information that I didn't ask for, right? I don't want to sound mean, because it's amazing you know all of it. But remember, on an IB test, you can say too much. So make sure we only say, I mean, in class it's fine, let's discuss it all out. But in your actual answer, don't say more than what I asked for, right? What are the chances they will have a child with the disease? What's our chances? 50% chance. PKU. Okay, wonderful. Next question is about cystic fibrosis. Look at this chunky question here. Cystic fibrosis is a chronic recessive genetic disorder that affects the respiratory and digestive system. Jaron was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis when he showed such symptoms as persistent cough and excessive appetite with little weight gain. Neither of his parents show symptoms of the disease. So, what are his parents? What do we call them? Carriers. Well, do they both have to be carriers? Let's find out. This one's kind of a backwards, right? Okay, I hear what you're saying. I believe you. I trust you. Let's show that with graphics. Okay, are we good with doing big C, little c? Does that make sense for the inheritance type that we are showing? Yes. Okay. So big C is normal, right? Little c is cystic fibrosis. Okay. This is kind of a backwards one, right? We know Jaron is the baby. So does he go inside the box or outside the box? Inside the box. And we know he has to be what genotype? Homozygous recessive, little c, little c. This is Mr. Jaron here. I don't know. So, what are the genotypes of Jaron's parents? Okay, so you're telling me, let me actually put him over here. It doesn't. I could do little c, but just for my own OCD brain, I like it this way. So big C, little c, we know at least one has to be a carrier. Can one parent be homozygous dominant? No? Right. Okay. So we know other parents cannot be homozygous dominant. Can they be heterozygous? Okay. I'll have to go backwards. Okay. So it could work out that parents were big C, little c times big C, little c. Okay. Or it could be a parent that is little c, little c.
No.
Oh.
Neither parent shows symptoms.
Got it. Aaron's your turn. Okay. True. Yes. Big C, little c. Okay. So here's your answer for A. Okay. What is Jaron's genotype? We already went over that. What are the chances that any future child of Jaron's parents will not inherit? Will not inherit the actual disease. Okay, so then we just fill in the rest. Right. Yes, exactly. So, does that make sense? For letter C, what are the chances that any future child will not inherit cystic fibrosis? These three will not get the disease, right? They can be carriers, but they will not inherit the disease. So this was what? And this would be, I should do that in a different color. Sorry. C, 75%. Okay? Because 3 of the 4 will not have the disease. What are the chances that any future child of Jaron's parents will inherit cystic fibrosis? 25%. Just like it was 25% that Jaron got it, each kid is only 25%. Sometimes that's a misconception. People think that Jaron's parents are having 4 kids. Well, they already got 1, so they won't have another, right? Yeah. Every time it resets. Yep. Just make sure you know that. Yeah. Well, yeah. Why do Jaron's parents not show symptoms? Because they are carriers only. Very good. I can't let that. Look, and Jaron apparently is spelled wrong. Okay, two more. Sickle cell is a condition that shows codominance. So now we're doing codominance, so think about your alleles. Okay. Sickle cell disease is when we already know all that. A man with sickle cell trait has a child with a woman without sickle cells. So with this one, can you be heterozygous and not have sickle? What kind of inheritance pattern do we have? Codominant. So remember, both alleles are expressed equally. So if you are heterozygous, do you have sickle cells? Yes, you have half the amount of them, but you still have them. Okay, so what are our alleles that we're going to use here? What do we like? Okay, just X. Maybe C for cells, right? So we know we have to have the same letter twice. Cells. But we can have what? Sickle and normal. I like that. So CN would be normal and CS would be sickle. Again, on a test, if this is an open-ended question, you could do whatever alleles make sense to you. But I suggest thinking out like what letters make sense for what you're looking at. It helps. I would say labeling them would be a smart idea. Yes. Okay, so we got a man with sickle cell trait. So we have to think about this. Could he be homozygous or heterozygous? But even homozygous, if you have CNCS, you have sickle cell. If you have CS, you have sickle cell. So with codominant, there's two ways to have the disease. But it doesn't tell us which one clearly, does it? So we might have to do two Punnett squares for this. But the mother is what? Normal, right? Oh, wait. Has no sickle cells. Okay, so we know mom is normal. Okay, this is mom, normal. So there's two options for dad so far, right? I think, let me read the question. But he has the trait, he could be CN, CS, or CSCS. But I think the way this is asking. Right, but it can also be a homozygous condition. Oh, I see. I didn't read that part. Thank you, Xander. Got it. Sickle cell trait is the heterozygous. So the man with the trait is heterozygous. Okay. I'm sorry, I was trying to get us there faster. That's what I get. CNCS. Thank you. Okay, you guys can fill that in, right? You have to wait. CNCS. See what happens if you don't read the whole question, Mrs. Lazier? I should. I might. This actually there has not been a year where my students have taken the external exams yet because COVID happened. So I don't know if I'm allowed, but I would definitely be willing to sit down and take the exams with you. I don't know. I mean, obviously I can't turn it in and get a grade. Tell me. What is the probability of a child having the traits? So A. Thank you, Kalia. Anybody else care to share their answer for letter A? 50%, because we're only looking for the traits. Why other conversations? Not helping. 50%, CNCS. This is slightly confusing to me because if you have the sickle cell trait, you do have a version of the disease. But like you said, the question made it clear. Okay. B, what is the probability of having a normal offspring? 50%, normal. Okay, good. C. With the disease? Okay, are we good? We're good with this, yes? Okay. So don't get confused when it's codominant. You still know how to read it, okay? Especially if the question makes it clear and you read it. Last one, the musician, Woody Guthrie. Is this a real musician?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really have much of an opinion, I guess. I don't know. Cool. Okay. Who wrote "This Land Is Your Land"? Oh yeah, he died of Huntington's disease. Guys, you did it again. Yes. All right. It's just a real life example. His wife was normal. Huntington's disease is caused by a latent dominant gene. Dominant. So are we doing codominant? No, regular dominant. So what are our alleles going to be? Big H, little h. Which one is the disease causing allele? So big H is going to be Huntington. And little h will be normal. Okay. So make sure, I do think labeling these on an IB exam would be smart. Okay. Yeah. Because, not necessarily. I think so. I haven't answered any questions. Meaning that it is not phenotypically physically expressed until later in life. 2 of his 8 children themselves died of Huntington's disease. The others were fine. Draw a Punnett square for Woody and his wife. Wife is normal, so what is normal? But wait, can't she be heterozygous? No, it's dominant. Thank you. For Woody. Okay,
Oh,
so
you can be heterozygous.
so Woody could be big. We know he has to have a big H. But what are we gonna put here in the question mark? What's our clue? 2 of the 8, which is what fraction? Which is what percent? 25. So we know we only get one little h, one what? So if some of them are fine, could he be big H, big H? No, because if he was big H, all of his kids would have it, right? So the fact that some of them had to be little h at least one of them, we'll say, right? We'll put this one down. Little h is the only way to be normal. So at least one of them, right? We know that 2 out of 8, but actually that doesn't matter because each time he has a child, it resets. But the fact that at least one of them had to be normal, he can't be big H, right? So he has to be big H, little h. And in that case, there's a 50% chance of each child having it. Yes? I love when that happens. Yes. Well, that's the thing with Huntington's, is most of the time you have kids before the disease expresses itself. Because it doesn't come out until late 30s, 40s. So a lot of people have already had kids by then. But it's not like that common overall in the population. Also, maybe not because now, maybe not back when Woody Guthrie was writing "This Land Is Your Land," which is a super old song, right? Now, I can be tested. Especially if somebody in my family has had Huntington's disease, I can be tested before I choose to have children. So then I make the choice: do I want to continue having children or not? Okay. Or we had that conversation: is there a possibility to get each egg tested because some of my eggs would have that allele possibly and some would not. So because of that reason, Orlando, we might be able to keep it rare in the population. And it's also going to be expensive. Okay, next. What type? Because it's part of sex link, which we haven't gotten to yet. I promise we will come back to it. I give you my promise. Okay. What causes blood types? Okay. Okay, we'll come to that. Actually, you don't have to write anything yet. But you should know that human blood types, more than 2 alleles in the population. But a max of 2 alleles, right? So this is a specific case where we actually have multiple alleles. Okay. This is also true, I think, for eye color, and I can't remember what other traits. It is also a section of it is complete dominance because we have I, big A is dominant over little I. So for some of our alleles, there is complete dominance. But for 2 of our alleles, we also have codominance. For example, IA and IB. And that should be easy to recognize because we have capital letter superscripts, which we know is codominant. And we have a little one. So we have 2 codominant alleles and a recessive allele. That's what makes blood types so fun. Here we go. Video break. Please make sure you're not writing during the video.
It's often said that humanity's many conflicts, we all bleed the same blood. It's a nice thought, but not quite accurate. In fact, our blood comes in a few different varieties. Our red blood cells contain a protein called hemoglobin that binds to oxygen, allowing the cells to transport it throughout the body. But they also have another kind of complex protein on the outside of the cell membrane. These proteins, known as antigens, communicate with white blood cells, immune cells that protect against infection. Antigens serve as identifying markers, allowing the immune system to recognize your body's own cells without attacking them as foreign bodies. The 2 main kinds of antigens, A and B, determine your blood type. But how do we get 4 blood types from only 2 antigens? Well, the antigens are coded for by 3 different alleles, varieties of a particular gene. While the A and B alleles code for A and B antigens, the O allele codes for neither. And because we inherit 1 copy of each gene from each parent, every individual has 2 alleles determining blood type. When these happen to be different, one overrides the other, depending on their relative dominance. For blood types, the A and B alleles are both dominant, while O is recessive. So A and A gives you type A blood, while B and B gives you type B. If you inherit 1 of each, the resulting codominance will produce both A and B antigens, which is type AB. The O allele is recessive, so either of the others will override it when they're paired, resulting in either type A or type B. But if you happen to inherit 2 O's, instructions will be expressed that make blood cells without the A or the B antigen. Because of these interactions, knowing both parents' blood types lets us predict the relative probability of their children's blood types. Why do blood types matter? For blood transfusions, finding the correct one is a matter of life and death. If someone with type A blood is given type B blood, or vice versa, their antibodies will reject the foreign antigens and attack them, potentially causing the transfused blood to clot. But because people with type AB blood produce both A and B antigens, they don't make antibodies against them, so they will recognize either as safe, making them universal recipients. On the other hand, people with blood type O do not produce either antigen, which makes them universal donors, but will cause their immune system to make antibodies that reject any other blood type. Unfortunately, matching donors and recipients is a bit more complicated due to additional antigen systems, particularly the Rh factor, named after the rhesus monkeys in which it was first isolated. Rh plus or Rh minus refers to the presence or absence of the D antigen of the Rh blood group system. And in addition to impeding some blood transfusions, it can cause severe complications in pregnancy. If an Rh negative mother is carrying an Rh positive child, her body will produce Rh antibodies that may cross the placenta and attack the fetus, a condition known as hemolytic disease of the newborn. Some cultures believe blood type to be associated with personality, though this is not supported by science. And though the proportions of different blood types vary between human populations, scientists aren't sure why they evolved, perhaps as protection against blood-borne diseases, or due to random genetic drift. Finally,
I'm gonna stop there. Do you know your blood type? Where are you on this graph? C, that's not an answer choice. Oh, sorry. There's no AB anywhere.
perhaps as protection against blood-borne diseases.
So it's interesting that O, which is the universal donor, is actually the most common. That's good, right? Oh no. Oh, it did.
Though this is not supported by science. And though the proportions of different blood types vary between human populations, scientists aren't sure why they evolved, perhaps as protection against blood-borne diseases, or due to random genetic drift. Finally, different species have different sets of antigens. In fact, the 4 main blood types shared by us apes seem paltry in comparison to the 13 types found in dogs.
Love learning new things. Okay, so I forget with RH. Do you know is just one positive and one negative? I mean, sorry, is one dominant, one recessive? Yeah, I always forget because I don't think we teach the rhesus factor. That's not part of your standards. But we can figure out what kind of baby, one type you will have. Mostly. Mr. Lazier's O negative. Mrs. Lazier's O positive. You guys remember what alleles give you O? Let's ignore the positive negative. Tiny I. Times. Tiny I. So we have what chance of getting what?
100%.
100%. Oh.
Come on.
I think it's a 50-50 chance whether it's positive or negative.
Oh, you have O blood type?
We both have O. But he is negative, which is the best one. I'm positive, which is the second.
How are you fair?
That's the rhesus factor. So the reason why, so O negative doesn't have, so basically O blood has no proteins on it. It doesn't have the A or the B or the D. And because of that, when you give it to somebody, even if they have antibodies of different types, it won't attack because there's no proteins to attack. Yeah. So that's why O negative is best. O positive is good because I only have the D antigen. So it's better because it only has one to attack. So basically, I can only give to people who are positive. Because if they have positive, they won't have the antibody for it. So I can give to A positive, B positive, AB positive. I can give to any positive. Okay. But he can give to anybody. That's science. Okay. Most well known and medically important. Do we need lights? Let's open maybe a window a little. They were discovered in 1900 and 1901 at the University of Vienna by Karl Landsteiner In the process, trying to learn why blood transfusions sometimes cause death and at other times save a patient. In 1930, he received the Nobel Prize for his discovery of blood types. Yay. Okay. I don't know if you guys watch Walking Dead. Do you guys watch Walking Dead? In the very beginning season where they give the little boy the transfusion, and he's like, well, hope it works, because they have no way of testing the blood type. So they just give it to him, and they're like, I hope he doesn't reject it. And luckily he didn't. But I remember thinking, I was like, oh my God, he's either going to die or live because we don't know his blood type. Okay, this is what you were writing. What causes blood type? You have a little question in the top left corner. A single gene with 3 alleles determines the ABO blood type. You can say single gene, 3 alleles. I know you guys kind of went over this in a previous slide, but we didn't write it down. The gene is the isoagglutinogen. A fun word to say. Try it out. Yes, write the red. The isoagglutinogen gene, which is the I, right? We have IA, IB, and little I. So I is the allele for that gene, which is the isoagglutinogen gene. That comes from agglutination. So if you were testing blood types, if you did mix the wrong ones together, basically it will clot. It will agglutinate. And so they call it the agglutinogen gene. Is another term for antigen, which is the protein on the red blood cell surface. That's really what the different blood types are, right? It's a gene that's coding for a protein on the cell surface. So the genotype would be IA, IB, for example. The phenotype would be the proteins on the blood surface. Okay, and you can see the different pictures in your little table. This is a great example of a phenotype that we can't actually physically see. I cannot look at you and be like, Jaden is type AB, right? But it is a characteristic that is a result of a gene, right? Okay. So do we have the red written? Okay. Thank you. You too. Here you can see the locus, the gene locus is all the way down on chromosome 9 at the very bottom. So the isoagglutinogen gene codes for a protein called glycosyltransferase, an enzyme that modifies the carbohydrate content of the red blood cell antigen. Don't worry about that detail. Here's your different chemical structures. Don't worry about that. Here is, so we say that, like in pictures, if you look at your pictures, you have like sticks with different shapes on the end, right? That is not what those actually look like. What they actually look is more like this. You have different carbohydrate chains, and then they have different molecules, different versions of a glucose. And so just know it's not a stick with a circle, okay? It is more molecular than that. But you don't have to memorize it. Okay, so we do need to know these alleles. So know that for blood type A, I think we're going to write this in a second. You have homozygous dominant A or heterozygous A. Okay. For B, homozygous dominant B or heterozygous B. AB, there's only one way to get AB. That's your codominant example, capital A, capital B. And only one way to get O, that's your homozygous recessive. There you go. By the way, you already had those written. You have a table to refer to. You should have those memorized though at some point. And hopefully with enough practice problems, you will have them memorized. But we also want to know what's going on the red blood. Not only on the blood cell, but in the blood plasma. So there's two things at work here. First, focusing on what does the gene actually code for? Or what is the allele, the specific allele types? And it codes for the proteins on the surface. So for type A blood, we have antigen A. So the antigen is the protein, right? A blood has antigen A. That's easy, makes sense, right? B blood, antigen B. AB blood, antigens A and B. Good so far? Type O, you can think O for like nothing. No antigens. 0 antigens. Okay. You could definitely shorten that. You could be like, you don't even have to say necessarily type A blood because it says A on your cell. You can just put antigen A only, antigen B only, and so on. The antigens should be opposite of your protein. By the way, while you're finishing copying, you're packing up. Darn it. I am still going to give you a practice problem tomorrow. So as long as you know your alleles, you'll be fine. Your test, your retake is in the grade book. You definitely did better. If you are still unhappy with your grade, I will give you one last retake if you need it. Some of you guys took it for the first time, so you have your retake that you can come to. If you look at areas and your grade makes you unhappy, what should you do? Come to enrichment. I can go over the test with you. We can review some more. Some of you got over 40, so good job if that was you. So check your areas and come in if you either need a retake or a review or just want me to explain your grade. Not today during lunch, but if you want to schedule for tomorrow. Tomorrow? Okay. Because also for enrichment, you still can't come, right? Yeah. Do you drive yourself in? Okay, so you don't have your own car.
Get the light, please. Heck no. No, thank you.
I already have puffy feet. I don't need extra salt. Because you're Orlando, I don't question. I don't question your weird ways. Guava juice, that's delicious though.